Welcome once again to the Catholic View for Women, where we give you news and views from a truly Catholic perspective. Great to be with you on the EWTN network, and a big thanks to our pastoral advisor working behind the scenes with us every single program, Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life. Now, this is a topic that a lot of people question in terms of families. What do we do and how do we educate our children? Do we send them to public school or Catholic school? So we're going to take a look at that today. And joining me, of course, my co-host, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez from the Vita Initiative, and Janet Morana from Priests for Life, Silent No More, and of course, Defending Life right here on EWTN. This has got to be a tough decision, right? Because you want to send your children to a Catholic school, I'm sure, because we have so many great Catholic schools out there now that are really doing a good job of helping people or the young people learn their faith, but at the same time, it can be very costly. So what do you do?
Exactly. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I went to Catholic school. My parents sacrificed tremendously to send me, but it's not everything. One thing that we've discovered in doing our interviews and just reflecting is that parents can choose parochial schools, Catholic schools, but they cannot abdicate their role in teaching the faith, and that's essential. That's something that I discovered in my own journey.
Right. Well, in my case, actually, when it came time for my children to go to school, I wasn't practicing my faith. It was right before my reversion. So, and the public school was actually only 3 blocks from my home in Staten Island, and the classroom size was small. It was a good choice. It was a very small public school that had a good environment. And so I started my children off in public school. Plus, we didn't have the money. I was still staying at home, only my husband was working. And so we were limited in funds. Catholic school wasn't even, in my thoughts. And then, of course, as I made that reversion, when Father Pavone came to my parish and my mother-in-law prayed for me to get a teaching job, because as I looked at public school, actually, the grammar school was fine, but I was very frightened, even before I reverted, to put my daughters in middle school. Because to me, that's where the problems were developing, where they'll teach them all kinds of other stuff. And, I was getting nervous. So I sought to go back to work as a public school teacher. And during that time, Father Pavone came to my parish, and I started my journey of reversion. And with that, I really said, you know what? My children, I really want them in Catholic school. And thanks be to God, because I was working full-time in public school as a public school teacher myself, we were then able to afford the tuition. But I had 3 of them all at the same time, and it was very costly. And I remember one time, not Father Pavone, but one of the other priests said to me, "Oh, well, Janet, you should be teaching here in the Catholic school." And I said, "Father, I have to teach in the public school to afford to send my children to the Catholic school, So I think sometimes parents desire the Catholic school education, but it has become so costly. And I reflect back to when I went to Catholic school, the ratio really of sisters, religious, to lay teachers was most of the school was taught by the nuns. And we only had 2 lay teachers, and that was grades 1 to 8, and 2 on each grade. So when you think about that, and so therefore the sisters taught for not a lot of money, obviously. The parish paid, the convent existed and whatever, but it's not like paying all lay teachers. And so I think that's what's really driven up the cost.
That was my next question. What has caused, Dominic and I, of course, never had any children, but I went to 8 years of Catholic grade school, and it wasn't that expensive. I mean, I guess if you look back and you compare it, I'm sure it was not easy. I know it was not easy for my parents, but you also received a discount if you sent more than one child, and there were things that were available. But I can remember starting with all sisters, and we were educated by the Sisters of St. Joseph's, and by the time we got to the 8th grade, we only had 2 or 3 nuns, and none of them was in a full habit any longer. We started with the sisters in the full habit, and it was mostly lay teachers. So you think that's what's driven up most of the cost?
I would think so. I mean, I had the same experience. The nuns started off in full habits, and then, of course, we got post-Vatican II, and their habits, first of all, they changed their names, to their real names, and all this stuff happened, and they changed their habits. And little by little, there were more and more lay teachers came in. And by the time it was my time for my children to go, I think in St. Charles on Staten Island, the only religious sister was the principal. And the whole school was all lay teachers. So now they're paying full salaries, even though, like I said, teachers in parochial school do make less than public school, not that much less. So now you add up all those extra expenses onto what a church has to, the school has to charge. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. You know,
Yes.
so I think they're very fortunate. I know in some dioceses they do have now some of the religious orders that are kind of surging again.
Right.
are
Sisters of
getting-
Mary, Mother of the
Sis-
Eucharist, just
Mary,
one,
Mother of the
yeah.
You're
Eucharist,
so
they're
blessed to have
teaching.
them,
So
Michigan.
hopefully, if we have that trend going back again, then the tuitions can start coming to a little bit more affordable.
Yes.
But and I know by the time my daughters got into Catholic high school, all-girl Catholic high school, to afford the three of them all at the same time, it was the same amount of money it would cost to put one of them through 1 year of college. Is what it costs for 1 year for all three in Catholic high school. So, you know, sometimes I think, Astrid, like you would say, like the desire is there, but then the means aren't.
Yes.
And that's unfortunate, I
When,
think.
when I attended, I think we were just as after Vatican II and everything, and I think we had half of the staff or the teachers were sisters, and so I benefited from knowing the sisters. And I think for me, having the sisters teach was like having spiritual mothers, because my parents were separating when I was a child, and for them to notice that and to have to tap into that spiritual motherhood and to spend time with me, seeing that I was a little bit more quiet and what's going on, and it was such a blessing for them to transmit that beautiful faith. I never forgot that. It was very expensive for my parents, immigrant Latino parents in East Los Angeles. It was extremely expensive. My parents, though, I really am so eternally grateful to them, because my father worked 2 jobs, including being the janitor of the school. So to afford, for us to go to school, and those that formation never left. Although I do want to say that it's important for parents to be involved in the faith formation.
You made a great point before, because the parents are responsible
delegate it,
for the educating of the faith and passing on the
Yes.
faith to the child,
And
not the school. Not that the school doesn't have
Yes.
responsibility, but the catechism is clear that the parents, it's the primary role of
Yes.
the parents to educate their
to be
children.
evaluating what is best for the child. In California in particular, and we were just there interviewing a wonderful lady, Alejandra Baker. We know it's challenging in California because public schools, obviously, it's the way to go if you can't afford, Catholic schools. But then you realize what you're missing out on, so that it's in California in particular, in places where there's just so many liberal, dangerous things being taught in the public schools. You have to really wonder, can we sacrifice to make it possible? We met Alejandra Baker in California, and her children were in public schools, and of course they're a very faithful couple, so they were teaching the faith, but they realized the benefit of the Catholic
they
school
felt they were
was
missing
worth it.
something.
Yes,
Yeah.
so let's listen to her interview now.
I have 3 children, and when it became the time to send them to school, my husband and I were evaluating the alternatives. And we knew since the very beginning that it was very important to put them in an environment that was healthy, that would support our values, our Catholic values, our pro-life values. And that we were, it's a team, the family, the parents are the main educators of their children, but as well, we find and we know how important it's school and the environment to support what we teach, and together, church, school, family, we can raise our children properly according to our faith. So we had to move. We began just with Catholic school in preschool, but then we had to move them to public school for financial reasons, and we were doing the best we could to still provide the good environment with good friends. But as they were growing, we were facing that the public schools were following the curriculum that was, that is taught there, and that it is beyond our hands to control that, and that they were receiving messages or teachings that are against our faith too, and programs that are against our traditions and more than our traditions, our faith. So we saw the urgent and the need to move them back to Catholic education, and God blessed us with the opportunity to go back home as we now know, as we know, and it was just a blessing that day when we shared our children that we were going back to Catholic school. At the beginning they were uncertain and afraid of the change because they were happy, And the first day of the school, our children said, "Thank you, Mom." I received a big hug from my daughter and from our son, and thank you for changing us back to our Catholic school. We belong here. We belong here. It's very important that we learn our faith, that we hear about it. So thank you. And my son My son, days later, he told me he felt the urge of going back just to public school because he said, Mom, I have to go tell them. I have to go tell them all what I'm learning here, because they don't know about God, and we don't hear about God there. And I have something to do. He compared what he was receiving here from what he was not receiving on the other side. And it's a blessing. So we were in public school for the first years, and we knew what we were lacking. We knew we needed the support of the Catholic school. And we were willing to sacrifice a little to make that happen. And what that meant was me getting a part-time job and be able to finance the school tuition with that. That meant for the children that mommy needs to be away from home for a few hours, maybe Saturday mornings, maybe early dinners twice a week. Daddy comes in and he takes over, mommy goes out. It's a blessing because they know that it is for their good, because this allows us to have them in Catholic education. They totally understand that, and they say, Mommy is doing this and we can go to school. And so Daddy takes over dinner and cleaning up and everything. The children say, bye, Mommy, smiling, and it's been a blessing. So yes, it's just a few hours part-time, and that is allowing us to enroll them in school.
Again, I think it's all a personal preference. You pray about it, you discern. No parent should feel guilty if they can't or decide not to send their children to Catholic school, or the opposite if they send their children to public school, because it may work out better for them. And as long as they are taking the primary responsibility of educating their children in the faith, and then you decide what's best for you.
Exactly.
Yes, and the parents are discussing the well-being of the children. The children are aware the parents want the best for them, and that they have to even be patient, because mom has to go to work some evenings, but in the end, it's all for the good of the family. And the beautiful thing that she shared with us is that her children noticed a difference when they were in public schools, and now that they're in Catholic schools, they saw the difference. They're learning their faith, they're going to Mass, and then her son said, Mommy, I have to go back to the public school because I want to tell my friends what they're missing out on.
But so also, not every Catholic school, as you alluded to, is going to be like the one that her children are in, or like the Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, which are amazing. They now run the Catholic school at our parish, where Deacon Dominic and I are serving. But not every Catholic school is going to be that solid. So even if you're sending them to a Catholic school, and in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about the Cardinal Newman Society, which gives us a good idea of what quote-unquote Catholic universities are truly Catholic, or the ones who are bringing people like Cecile Richards and others to speak at their quote-unquote Catholic universities. It's really important to do your homework. To be discerning. Are they faithful? Are they really catechizing my children? What are they teaching? Meet the teachers. What are they about? Because you'll find some surprises, unfortunately. In California, that's definitely the case. And I would say it's the case in a lot of places. And even if it is a solid school, you never can abdicate the role as a parent. In fact, it's part of our faith. That your role as a parent, you have to be the primary educator and conveyor of, transmitter of the faith. And even me, I went to a great school with the sisters, but I still instinctively was seeking more from my own parents. I brought home a bumper sticker that said, "The family who prays together stays together." My parents were separating, and I put that bumper sticker on my bed headboard. I remember vividly, because as a child, you instinctively know that your parents are the most important people to you in every regard. Do you think having that strength that you received from the sisters made a huge difference at the time when you were going through your struggles with your parents? Absolutely, and for my whole life. That impression that I had, that sweetness, I think was key even for me to be discerning religious life, to remember them and the beautiful motherhood that they conveyed, the consolation that I had. They noticed me, they took the time to care for me and notice that I was struggling. I think that really left a tremendous impression for me. And even just as a revert, that was so key to me, to remember those sweet moments with those sisters. Great discussion, ladies. Thanks. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll hear from someone who actually looked at the public schools. So this is what we're doing. We're looking at both sides of this issue. We're raising the question of Catholic school or public school and taking a look at it. When we come back, we'll also have some great resources for you from our website and also from the network. We'll be right back on the Catholic View for Women. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining us on this edition of The Catholic View for Women, along with Astrid Bennett Gutierrez and Janet Morana. I'm Teresa Tomeo, and we're talking about public schools or Catholic schools. You decide, and we're taking a look at that topic. Good discussion, ladies, before the break. There are two sides to every story, but some key issues that the most important thing is that the parents have to be involved.
Yes.
Yeah, and they have to be involved in all the part of the education for the child, not just the faith. I mean, your faith and your religion is number one, obviously, relationship with the Lord. But all the aspects, because when my children were in public school, I didn't take a back seat at all. Starting from when they first entered, my oldest daughter, Jennifer, in kindergarten, I joined the PTA. I got involved in the PTA, whatever activities they were doing. I went to all the PTA meetings. I volunteered to be a class mom, to go on field trips. This is before I went back to work.
Jennifer must have loved you. You were everywhere. Here she comes again.
Here she comes. No, but I did
But
that.
no, that's great.
thing.
That's what you need to do.
And I volunteered. They had a volunteer reading program. I volunteered with that.
That's
and then
excellent.
When my children came home from school, the first thing I would do is open up their school bags and see
What is in there? What are
what's
they
in there.
getting? What
What did
materials?
they get? What did you do? Because when you ask kids, what did you do in school
Oh,
today?
nothing.
Nothing. But you can find out something by, let me see your notebook, especially when they're little. Oh, you did the letter T today. Oh, that's very good. And then I always supplemented other things. I used to buy those other little workbooks, and and for all the different subjects, for reading, for math, for phonics. And my kids to this day joke about when the summer came and everyone would go, oh, no school. Yeah, my mom kept school at the house because after breakfast, I gave them each a notebook for the summer. That was their journal. They had to write every morning what they did the day before, something about what they did. And then I had a page of math and a page of phonics.
Wow.
And before they were allowed to put on their swimsuits to go in the yard to play and be in the pool, we had to do our morning little studies together. Now, people might have thought I was crazy, but I said, you just can't take a vacation from school or summer long.
Yes.
And even though they were in public school, I took an active role. And I continued that role, even though I went back to teach and moved them into Catholic school, I still was involved in what they were doing. And like we would say, in all the subjects, not just the religion. And also, too, having a relationship with the teachers. Make sure you go to
And they see
the
your
parent-teacher
face and
conference, and you're there. You make those appointments. You're involved. If they're asking for volunteers, if you can't, sometimes Grandma can. Ask an in-law or somebody to help out, because the more the family is involved with the school and the education, be it public or Catholic, the more you're going to know about that education. And I can also remember that they were trying to push something in the school. It wasn't, the parents were all up in arms. It had to do with their sex education very early.
right.
And because I was involved in the PTA, we banned it from our school and said, this is not going to be in our school. And parents active, you can stop certain things from happening.
Right. So speaking of that, I mean, you're talking about the parents' role. Now, what is the state's role? And what are the limits of what the state can do? From the Catechism, 2372 is a great place to look for that role. And it says the following: the state has a responsibility for its citizens' well-being. In this capacity, it is legitimate for it to intervene to orient the demography of the population. This can be done by means of objective and respectful information, but certainly not by authoritarian coercive measures. The state may not legitimately usurp the initiative of spouses who have the primary responsibility for the procreation and education of their children. In this area, it is not authorized to employ means contrary to the moral law.
Right.
So that's what
very clear.
parents have to be so discerning that they have that role and they can stand up for their children's well-being, their morality, and then by doing that, you're being a witness to other parents, and that's how things change in the public school system.
Absolutely.
So, and then my colleague and friend Kristina Garza, who's with me at the Vita Initiative, she is, I mean, you've met her. She's a wonderful. Young lady, tremendous leader, and very strong in her faith. And she went to public school, but the difference is the way her parents handled, her formation. So let's listen to her, what she has to say.
My experience of making it through the public school system in high school, well, my whole life, even through university, and graduating with my faith intact or even stronger than when I went in, and still pro-life and still desiring to live the virtue of chastity is actually an anomaly. But it was truly by the grace of God that I think I got through public school with a stronger faith than when I entered. I truly view my life as a gift, and that there were various situations in which God providentially provided for me to run into strong, faithful Catholics. For example, when I was in high school, I was very involved in music, and my private music teacher, she happened to go to the same parish that I did. And when I would come in for my music classes every week, she would ask, "So did you go to Mass on Sunday?" And I was embarrassed to say no, and so I asked my dad to take me to Mass so that I would have something to talk with her about at my music lessons. And so God put this very faithful person in my life that encouraged me very indirectly to go to Mass, but I was embarrassed to show up to my music class without something to say. And she ended up becoming my confirmation sponsor, but it was just those indirect methods that people would supplement just their careers and their lives. I had teachers that happened to be Christian and would just mention things that would pique my interest, and I had friends who were in confirmation class and would invite me to youth group, and I just happened to find out about the faith and happened to find out about the pro-life movement through these very providential circumstances. Well, in public school, obviously the culture of death is everywhere, from the media, from what you see on TV, to what kids are looking at on their phones, on Facebook, and now even young people are turning from Facebook to things like Snapchat, where the media disappears very quickly and it's very easy to get away with indiscretions even during class. I remember when I was in high school, people were already texting during class, and because it was so momentary, it was so easy to get away with indiscretions, not only during class, but even more so outside of class and during breaks. And so I kind of escaped that environment by being very busy. So while I went to public school and was immersed in a secular environment my whole education, there were many opportunities to get involved in outside activities. So I was really busy with music and extracurricular activities and AP classes and extra studious things, so I was kind of a nerd. But I really think that God inspired me with an interest to learn and a desire to be involved in these extra things, because it prevented me from being out at parties at night, out with friends. I had friends that would go after school, and they would have gone to their friends' houses maybe to smoke weed, or they would have gone and partied even during the week, and I just didn't have time for it because I was so involved in school and extracurricular activities. So I do advise, if parents do have kids that are in public school and they can keep them busy with other activities and keep them home and working on things and going to confirmation classes and doing other activities, it does help your student in the long run. I'm so grateful that my parents kept me busy during high school because I didn't have time to get into trouble and to go party.
Wow. You see, busy. And that's kind of what I did with my daughters too. I kept them busy. I knew where they were at all times, even when they were in high school. You know, I actually, on my way to work, would drop them off at school.
But you have to do that.
do.
And
You
it's
have
not
to
that
be
your
involved.
children are bad, but you have to be involved.
You have to be involved, and you have to know what they're doing, where they're
Right.
going. So public or Catholic, I think everyone have to decide what's affordable and pray about it, and just keep track of your children. Really, it's your first duty. That's what I would say.
Yes.
Well, of course, I just want to point out our beautiful Kitchen Madonna, who is the patroness here on our program. Part of those holy reminders Mother Angelica always talks about. And she's available at the Religious Catalog. Beautiful symbolism. The kettle here is to nourish you in body, but also in spiritually nourishment that we need. The broom is to keep our homes clean, sweep it out, but also to keep our thoughts and our actions and our things we do and how we speak also very clean. Keys that, of course, Mary will help bring us to the kingdom through Jesus. They open the keys of the kingdom, but the keys also keep the home safe. Bronze statue, she's beautiful, and I know we all have them in our homes, and it does add a lot to the atmosphere around your kitchen or dining room table. And for our homework, we have a few things here. We have, first of all, to check out the Cardinal Newman Societies. That's very important when you're looking at colleges and universities.
It's a great organization.
Great organization, cardinalnewmansociety.org. The second item, of course, is you can go to EWTN Religious Catalog. There's great resources for young children and then middle school and on, including books, DVDs, rosaries, and so much more. And of course, number 3, go to our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com, for more information. You can also sign up there for our newsletter. And of course, we have all the discussion questions and homework there for each episode on our website. And finally, you're on Facebook, like The Catholic View for Women.
Yeah, great discussion too, and trying to give you both sides of this issue, and really appreciate your input. You know, as both a young woman who went to Catholic school, as did I, and a mom who was very involved in her children. Thanks for watching The Catholic View for Women. Always good to be with you. We'll see you next time. Don't forget, as Janet said, our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com.